In 1946, a book emerged that would revolutionize the way we raise our children. This book would become a cornerstone in the lives of countless families, offering a new perspective on child rearing that was both compassionate and practical. It was called The Common Sense Book of Baby and Child Care, written by a pediatrician named Dr. Benjamin Spock. This book quickly became a bestseller, resonating with parents who were eager for a more understanding and flexible approach to raising their children. Dr. Spock wasn't just any doctor. He had a knack for explaining complex medical concepts in a way that everyday parents could understand. His approachable style and empathetic tone made his advice accessible and relatable, breaking down barriers between medical expertise and parental intuition. His book was a breath of fresh air, offering reassurance and practical advice in a world hungry for guidance. Parents found solace in his words, feeling more confident and less isolated in their parenting journey. Before Dr. Spock came along, parenting advice often came from strict manuals or old wives' tales. These sources were rigid and often contradictory, leaving parents confused and anxious about the best way to care for their children. Mothers, in particular, felt pressured to follow rigid schedules and practices. The stress of adhering to these stringent guidelines often overshadowed the joys of parenting, making the experience more about compliance than connection. Dr. Spock challenged these norms. He advocated for a more flexible, child-centered approach, emphasizing the importance of understanding and responding to the individual needs of each child. He believed in the innate wisdom of parents and encouraged them to trust their instincts. This was a radical departure from the prevailing attitudes of the time, which often undermined parental confidence. His book was a beacon of hope, assuring parents that they were capable of raising happy, healthy children. It empowered them to embrace their roles with confidence and joy, transforming the landscape of parenting for generations to come. Understanding the impact of Dr. Spock's book requires a glimpse into the world it entered. The post-war era was a time of significant change and adjustment for many families. The year was 1946. The world was emerging from the shadows of a devastating global conflict. World War II had just ended, leaving societies in a state of flux. Soldiers were returning home, eager to rebuild their lives and start families. Women who had bravely filled factories and shipyards during the war were now encouraged to return to domestic life. This shift was not just a change in occupation, but a profound transformation in identity and purpose. This transition wasn't always smooth. Many women found it challenging to leave behind the independence and sense of contribution they had experienced during the war. Mothers faced immense pressure to create the perfect homes and raise well-adjusted children. The societal expectations were high, and the stakes felt enormous. Yet they often lacked the support systems they needed. The extended family networks that once provided guidance and assistance were no longer as prevalent. Traditional sources of advice, like extended families, were less common in a society increasingly on the move. Urbanization and mobility meant that families were more isolated than ever before. Into this void stepped Dr. Spock, offering a reassuring voice of reason and experience. His book became a beacon of hope and guidance for parents navigating the complexities of post-war family life. At the heart of Dr. Spock's philosophy lay a simple yet profound message: trust yourself. This was a radical departure from the prevailing parenting advice of the time, which often emphasized strict routines and expert opinions over personal intuition. You know more than you think you do. These words were a beacon of hope for many parents who felt overwhelmed by the conflicting advice from various experts. This revolutionary idea empowered parents to rely on their own instincts and observations. It encouraged them to pay close attention to their children's needs and behaviors, fostering a deeper connection and understanding. Instead of blindly following rigid schedules, Spock encouraged flexibility and responsiveness to a baby's cues. He believed that parents were the best judges of their own children's needs and that they should trust their gut feelings. He emphasized that every child is unique, developing at their own pace. This individualized approach allowed parents to adapt their caregiving to suit their child's specific developmental stage and personality. This approach was a stark contrast to the prevailing wisdom of the time, which often viewed infants as blank slates to be molded by strict routines. The rigid schedules and impersonal methods were seen as the gold standard, leaving little room for parental intuition. Spock's message resonated deeply with parents, freeing them from the shackles of self-doubt and rigid expectations. It gave them the confidence to enjoy their parenting journey, knowing that their instincts were valid and valuable. This shift not only transformed individual families, but also had a lasting impact on parenting philosophies for generations to come. Dr. Spock understood that children are not miniature adults. He recognized that they go through distinct developmental stages, each with its own unique challenges and triumphs. His book provided parents with a roadmap of sorts, helping them understand the emotional and physical milestones their children would experience. From the terrible twos to the teenage years, Spock offered age-appropriate guidance on everything from toilet training to dealing with sibling rivalry. He stressed the importance of play, encouraging parents to see the world through their child's eyes. This emphasis on understanding child development was groundbreaking and remains a cornerstone of positive parenting today. A kinder, gentler approach. Perhaps one of Dr. Spock's most enduring contributions was his advocacy for a more compassionate approach to parenting. He challenged the prevailing notion that children should be seen and not heard. Instead, he encouraged parents to treat their children with respect and understanding. Spock believed that discipline should be about teaching, not punishing. He advocated for positive reinforcement, setting limits, and communicating clearly with children. This emphasis on empathy and connection laid the groundwork for the modern parenting movements focused on attachment parenting and positive discipline. Feeding frenzy then and now. Baby and childcare dedicated significant space to the topic of feeding. Spock's advice in this area, however, reveals how even the most well-intentioned guidance can be influenced by the scientific understanding of the time. For example, Spock initially recommended formula feeding over breastfeeding, a stance he later revised as research highlighted the benefits of breast milk. This evolution highlights an important point. Parenting advice, even from experts, is not set in stone. It's crucial to stay informed about current research and consult with healthcare professionals on matters as vital as infant feeding. Discipline versus punishment. One area where Dr. Spock's advice has been subject to misinterpretation is the realm of discipline. Some critics argued that his emphasis on understanding and leniency led to a generation of undisciplined children. However, this interpretation overlooks the nuances of Spock's approach. Spock believed in setting firm limits and providing consequences for misbehavior. However, he stressed that discipline should be age-appropriate and delivered with empathy. His focus was on teaching children self-control and responsibility, not on blind obedience through punishment. Spock's enduring legacy. Despite the passage of time and the inevitable evolution of parenting practices, Dr. Spock's legacy remains remarkably relevant. His core messages of trusting parental instincts, understanding child development, and approaching parenting with compassion continue to resonate with parents today. His book, translated into countless languages and sold over 50 million copies worldwide, remains a testament to his enduring influence. Spock's work helped to democratize parenting advice, empowering parents from all walks of life to make informed decisions for their children. Critics and controversies. Like any influential figure, Dr. Spock was not without his critics. Some argued that his permissive approach to discipline contributed to a decline in societal values. Others criticized his early stance on breastfeeding. His views on gender roles, which reflected the norms of his time, also faced scrutiny. It is important to note that Spock himself acknowledged the need for his advice to evolve alongside societal changes and scientific advancements. He revised his book several times throughout his life, incorporating new research and addressing criticisms. a timeless guide, adapting to modernity. While certain aspects of Dr. Spock's advice may require updating to reflect current scientific understanding and societal norms, the core principles underpinning his work remain timeless. Trusting your instincts, understanding your child's unique development, and approaching parenting with compassion are enduring values that transcend generations. Dr. Spock's work serves as a reminder that parenting is not about achieving perfection, but about building strong, loving relationships with our children. It's about trusting ourselves, embracing the journey, and approaching the ever-evolving adventure of parenthood with an open heart and a willingness to learn and adapt.